few years ago, I made a video talking about really it's time to take In God We Trust off of our money. It's time to take In God We Trust off of our buildings, off of our documents, and just write what really is true, which is In Government We Trust. Because the nation of America is leaning on the government unlike anything before, because this nation was built on individuals who then did things on their own. They were left alone to succeed or fail on their own. And as a result, we have one of the greatest nations we've ever seen in the history of the world. And I want to take a moment and just kind of tell you a story you might not be familiar with. Now, I was born and raised in the Kansas City, Missouri area, and I still live in the Kansas City, Missouri area, and my kids are being raised here. And a lot of history in Kansas City, but piece of history you might not be aware of is during the Great Depression, Kansas City was the only city in the nation that did not feel the effects of the Great Depression like the rest of the nation did. And it was really for one simple reason. Billions of dollars was being sent to cities across the country from the government to provide food, to give people money, unemployment types of things, soup kitchens, that kind of thing. So there was all this money sent to the country, billions and billions of dollars sent to the cities, essentially saying, here, feed your people for nothing, give them money for no work, and take care of the people with this money. And in thought, that might not be, it might not be a bad idea when people are going through depression, but in practicality, when that money was sent to Kansas City, it was against the law at the time. It was on the books of Kansas City. It was against the law to give out anything from government to any kind of charity. And at the time, there was no technically unemployment and official unemployment at the time. So there was all these hundreds of millions of dollars coming into Kansas City, but it was not going to the people. It was definitely not feeding the people. It was not giving them money. They were not paying their rent. They weren't giving them unemployment, nothing like that. But they had to do something with the money, so they put it into building projects. Now, at the time, Pendergast was a very corrupt man. I don't want to get into, the corruption or anything like that, but he was running essentially a concrete empire, beginnings of a concrete empire at the time. And ultimately what happened was these hundreds of millions of dollars went into building some of the most beautiful buildings we have in Kansas City, our City Hall, the county building, all of the government buildings. There's kind of a government district in Kansas City. Most of those buildings were built with money from the Great Depression. Also in Kansas City, we have more boulevards than any other city in the entire world. More miles of boulevards, so here we go, more cement, more roads. We have more fountains, there's second most fountains than any other city in the world. There we go, more construction projects, more cement. And as a result, everybody had jobs. You didn't have a hard time finding work in Kansas City. There was plenty of work to be done. So as a result, there really wasn't much of a Great Depression, because ultimately what took place was people just worked, this freedom that we're losing slowly, a good example is look at New York City. You can't go buy a soda that's more than like 20 ounces because they're making the decision for you. You can't go into restaurants and bars without certain paperwork. They're making decisions for you. People, when I was laid off in 2009, 2010 as a teacher, it was referred to as the Great Recession. Now it's being referred to as the Great Resignation, because the government is just handing money to people unlike anything we've ever seen, and people are leaning on the government. It is In Government We Trust. And so I'm just saying, just change it. Just be honest about it. People aren't, when you rely on God, when you say, you know what, I don't need the government. Because I don't need the government. Have a good military, make the roads straight, and stay out of my business. And that's about it. The last time the government closed down, I remember thinking, well, let's just keep it this way. Keep the basics that you need to function, keep the military, keep the smallest percentage of IRS people, really keep it basics, run on what you need only. And that's what we ran when the government was shut down. And you know what? We all did great. We did just fine without the government, just fine without them. And when this country was being built, the government didn't do it. The people built this country. It was people that, and the massive wealth that came from this country, massive science that came from this country. It's the most amazing country in the world because people were left alone to succeed or fail, survive or die. That was it. And now what we're doing is the government gives you you don't even need to do anything. You could just go rent a government apartment. They'll pay your bills. They'll fill your fridge full of food. They'll keep your electricity on. They'll keep your water on. And you can just sit on that couch and just grow fat and slowly fuse to it. But that's literally what we're dealing with here. Leave us alone. You know, if you're going to keep doing, if we're going down the path of just be honest, the government we trust, just change it, be honest. But if you're going to lean on God, government is not part of that. So love to hear your thoughts on all this. Put it in the comments below. If you like this video, click like and subscribe. Feel called to support this channel through Patreon. That link is also below. But the most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. So never hesitate to send that in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.